Hello, hello to everyone. Good morning and welcome to the third event of the 2021 series of the UFI Entrepreneurial Talk Show. This episode is focused on planning and managing. My name is Massimiliano Schiraldi and I'm a professor of industrial systems engineering, say operations and supply chain management. It's easier at Tor Vergata University of Rome in Italy. When I was asked to organize this event on behalf of my university, I decided to organize it differently from the other episodes. So this won't be a lecture, this won't be a monologue. I decided to set it up as much similar as possible as a real talk show. So today we have guests, and I will introduce them to you in a while. But before, let me spend some words on today's schedule. As all the UFI talk, this episode is also divided into two parts. The first part, which is this one, is public. Now we are streaming on the YouTube channel of my university. The second part will start at 11 o'clock. It is restricted to the UFI students and will be interactive. So we won't be streaming on YouTube anymore, of course, and we will switch to a Microsoft Team platform. To access it, you need a link. So if you are a UFI student and you don't have the link, you have 1 hour of time to reach your tutor and get it. Now, let me introduce today's guests. They are two executives of two very large and famous multinational companies, Johnson & Johnson and Amazon. I guess you heard a couple of times of these names. They're among the best people I know to discuss with when speaking of planning and managing. The first guest is a mechanical engineer, is a former researcher because indeed he started working at the Materials Development Research Center in Italy. He is specialized in industrial liquid production engineering. He designs and manages process improvement, continuous improvement, operational improvement, OEE improvement, so several types of business improvements, and also leads transformational process innovation. He now is 33 years in this company, and I'm talking of the worldwide global technology platform leader and director at Johnson & Johnson, Alessandro Di Pietro. Welcome, Alessandro, and thank you for having accepted my invitation.
Hi, everybody. Honored to be here.
The second guest is a former student of mine. He studied with me here at Tor Vergata University. He got not only his Master of Science in Engineering and Management, but also he has MBA and the PhD in Operation Management. He taught industrial environment engineering for years. He carried out a visiting period at the EBM Research Center in California, and he also worked as a project manager and a strategic consultant. He was among the first people hired 8 years ago when his company arrived in Italy. I am glad to welcome back in his university, at least virtually, the Europe Process Improvement Director of Amazon, Alessio Gioiusa. Welcome, Alessio. Thanks for having
Hi,
accepted my invitation.
hi everybody, and thanks a lot for inviting. Honor to be here.
So, let's start with Alessandro. Alessandro, I have a very simple question for you. The question is, can we manage companies, projects, events without planning? So, because this question is very, very simple, let me add a little premise. I have several friends of mine which say that planning is useless because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it's difficult, of course, it's difficult. And at the end of the day, they say the reality never sticks to the plan. So they criticize me. They often say, why do you need to plan everything? It seems you need to define everything in advance and you don't leave room for uncertainty or surprises. They say it's better to wake up, look at what the tide has left on the shore, and decide what to do. In my opinion, this is the perfect definition for a reactive approach. Moreover, I would say this is not only reactive, it's a passive approach. So if this is your philosophy in your personal life, okay, it's your choice. It's your problem, I would say. It's also the problem for those who stay near you, like your family and your partner or your friends. But if we talk about business, if we talk about entrepreneurship or work life, avoiding to plan may be a problem not only for your colleagues but also for your company. which in turn it means that may be a problem for you. So I often say that planning gives you the desired direction, the expected direction. And on top of this, it also shows you the possible path you may be willing to follow if the reality doesn't stick to the expected or desired direction. So I do agree that often the reality does not follow the plans. But planning is not a matter of being optimistic or, let's say, reducing the degrees of freedom of your life, but it's a matter of being proactive, being prepared for anything that may happen. So it's much like a behavior of pessimistic people, maybe. Alessandro, is planning really necessary for you?
Well, my tendency is to say definitely yes. I'm a little bit biased. I started my 33 years career in J&J as a planner, so probably I'm not the one that is more the right to challenge that. Anyway, definitely planning is something which is very natural. So it's surprising that people are commenting negatively, but I understand why they say that. We are all planning every day of our lives. When we wake up in the morning, indirectly, informally, we are always planning what we are going to do. We couldn't run our day, our life, our families without foreseeing what the future will be, even short time. So the people that are challenging planning, they are basing their comments on a very real thing. Reality is always different from what you plan. Reality is unpredictable by definition. Imagine what a boring life would it be if it could be predicted. Irrationality, unknowns are there for sure. But the very same reason that pushes people to challenge the uh, meaningfulness of planning, the very same basic concepts are the ones that justify planning. In an uncertain world, mostly if you are talking about entrepreneurship, in an uncertain world, we love to minimize uncertainty. So we as entrepreneurs are used to risks, but we don't love them. So it's unless, I mean, you should be really crazy to love risk for the sake of risks. We know they are there. We would like to minimize it. And from that point of view, the fact that reality is unpredictable is by definition a risk. Planning is there to help us try to minimize. We are engineers. I mean, I'm an engineer as a background. So 99.9% of what I've been studying are models, attempts to predict something that is not predictable completely. So a bridge, a construction, will it stand at the force and the load? Yeah, we have a model that with some factors tells us that it works. Every once in a while, there are uncertain situations that make it break. So the fact that the life is not predictable doesn't mean that you have not to plan. It's only a matter of being a conscious planner. We will see later, probably in the discussion will come out, how can we definitely need for a plan. Definitely we need to know that it will never, ever, ever be followed. But at least you know where you are. Plan is a map, but plan is as well a model. So there's so much good in stopping and thinking about what can be the next steps or situations that definitely makes it worth investing time on. You minimize the risk of doing the wrong thing so much that probably even those that think that is useless could rethink about this need.
Okay, now I want to hear Alessio's opinion. And Alessio, planning is often seen as a duty, as like an administrative procedure, or at its best as a tool. I think I share Alessandro's opinion. I think planning is not only a task, but it is a mindset, is an attitude. Do you have stories of situations lived without planning when it was needed? And of course, if you want to add anything to what Alessandro just said, please don't hesitate to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Max, and I fully agree with what Alessandro said. Right, so I was writing down this plan is a map, but also is a model. I definitely agree with this statement. There is also this famous sentence that by failing to plan, you are planning to fail, which in a sense can summarize why planning is important. Based on my experience, I believe that planning is crucial for a variety of reasons. As Alessandro said, planning is not like preparing and defining every single step of what you want to do, but this can be seen also as it's something different. This can be seen like a management tool, at least the way I see it. It's something that is crucial to keep all your team aligned toward the goal. So the moment you sit there and you start planning, you are in a way forcing yourself to defining and setting the right goal, and you are also understanding what can be the best way for reaching the target, for reaching that goal. Then we can argue whether the plan that will come out will be actually the best one or not, but at least you are defining a baseline and you are keeping your team aligned on that baseline. If you keep your team aligned on the baseline, you are avoiding a lot of frustration. If we look on the negative side, if we look on the positive way, you are boosting motivation, you are boosting team spirit, because all your team member will know what they are doing, what is the goal, and you are stimulating a lot of innovation and a lot of brain energy. Imagine you know where you have to go, and you know what kind of approach you decided to have. When your team is involved on this, they will very often look at alternative way or a better way for achieving that goal, and this is creating very positive energy and vibration between the team when interacting. It also helps a lot, like in terms of trust and credibility, not only internally but also with external stakeholders. So you really want to have a plan, also for this. In general, it happened to me. I have stories in both cases. So when I did the plan and also when I didn't have enough time to plan. So it, I'm always trying to plan as much as needed, not more than needed. Sometimes it happened to me I was not planning, and I can really felt the frustration from the team, because look, these things are happening and we don't really know whether we need to go on the right side or on the left side. And this was a very useful lesson learned for myself, but also for the team, because then we had to figure out how to move out of that area. So I hope this answered in a way your question.
See, it does. Actually, it does. And I know that Alessandro has a point on this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting to look at how many different sides planning has. Now, while you were speaking, Alessio, it came to my mind that it's a wonderful medium for communication. I remember the face of my boss when I was very young, and he asked me the normal question when you run a project, say, "Where are we now?"
And you
And I
said,
looked at
in
him and
your
said,
room, actually, in your room.
actually in your room presently, I'm doing well, by the way. And he said, yeah, but how are we on track? How are we really getting there? Which is, so unless you plan, you can never communicate effectively. And by the way, you can never build trust in the one that you see. Imagine that you enter a room of someone, and he is asking, he want to fund the ideas that you are really willing to kick off. And he says, which are the plans? I said, I have no plan. I will wake up in the morning. I'll see what happens. Probably this will not generate, even if reality cannot be foreseen, trust passes through a good planning. People feel much more relaxed before providing you millions.
Yeah, because people want to see that you are controlling the situation. So
exactly.
No plans means no control, basically.
By definition. So you really are saying, I will fly without any connection with the tower control. Wow. Either you're really good or you are crazy.
But this happens also in teaching. For example, when you enter the class for the first time and during the first lesson of each course, each year, the students expect the teacher to have the control of the situation. If you just start talking without having explained what is the aim, what are the goals of the lessons, what is the schedule, what we're going to go through, the students will, of course, be lost. Of course.
Yeah.
Alessandro, so we will go back on this psychological approach, because both of you talked about trust, and I want to go back on this, but later. Now let's stay on the, let's say, methodologies and on the approach, because one effective approach to planning is usually starting from a strategic level and then moving to the tactical level and then to the operational level, So shortening the time horizon and increasing the level of detail, like looking at different geographical maps, different scales. So to go from Rome to Berlin, you use a large scale map. Then you decrease the scale when you have to find the street, the final address. So why this hierarchical approach to planning?
Well, first of all, if we stay with your example, imagine if you have to go from Rome to Berlin with a map that has a scale that every building block is this size. Probably will be a little bit too large to go and drive there. Probably you need a truck to contain it, and it's the very same thing. So definitely, the best metaphor to explain why the three levels are needed, and really there are three different things. They provide three different kind of service to the one that are doing. Is the metaphor is the one of the artist. Have you seen the artist painting on a canvas? They generally start putting the reference of the picture they're willing to really design draw. So that at least they get the general overall sizing of the parts and proportions. So they never go into the details, but they know the different parts of the painting, how it looks like. And it's definitely needed. Out of the metaphor, whenever you go and start having a company to run, you want to know, you don't want to know the frame, the kind of environment, because you are looking at scales of time which are larger, and so more unpredictable than normal. So you need to analyze only the key references, the key financial or technological or business references. Very large topic and very, very vague and wide content. So you need like a map with a large scale. What the aim of these kind of effort is to identify the strategies and the main path to that strategy. So you need a vision, but you need even to identify which macro path you want to use to go there, by plane, by train, or driving a car. It depends dramatically on the size of the on the distance. In this specific case, you don't really want to know every single detail, but you definitely want to know the overall picture. This drives capital analysis, people and capability development, business kind of challenges, all these things, macro scale, macro planning. But this is never stands by itself. It remains not very much useful unless you try and
It
build
remains on
the
the cloud.
tactics. Yeah, remains
Yep.
on the cloud. Nobody really cares. And this is a pathology, by the way. There are people that keep the same size of map
Yep.
when they go down, and people, going back to the feeling that we can generate into listeners, feel lost. They feel that it is too vague, too general. They don't see any advantage and any guide in that tool. Alessio was mentioning planning is a tool. If you go the wrong tool, people will never use it. If you go with a screwdriver and you need a drill, really honestly, people don't feel very happy. But the tactics require inevitably to take into consideration smaller scale. You do not develop tactics for tenth of years, but probably 3-5 years, and you need to get the details. So what is really happening? Really, which kind of inflation rate are you expecting? Which kind of capability you presently have, and which kind of things you want to know? So you enter into the details. But again, this is only driving the macro, the detailed way of doing, but not the day-to-day life. The day-to-day life belongs to the other one, to the other level, definitely,
The
that
third
goes
one.
into real, which is the third one, which is really the operational one, which is very, very short, is almost day by day or week by week, and is really the more detailed. So the one that will definitely different from reality, it will definitely be different from what you were expecting, and the more, but even the one that you really need to plan your week. As you can see, so summarizing the very first level, mostly the direction and main path. The second one, how to go there in a reasonable detail with all the funding, people, requirements, and money. And the third one, the agenda of the week.
Yeah, what to do
All the
today.
three,
Yep.
all the three are really, really necessary, but they are three different animals. They are treated in three different ways, and they are reviewed in three different ways.
And I mean, you said they are connected with three different layers of, let's say, performance indicators. So I guess this resembles me when you do Hoshin Kanri. So the planning, the strategic planning, starting from the critical success factors at the top level, then the key performance indicators, the key result indicators, the key risk indicators, and then the performance indicator, result indicator, risk indicator. So it's like a tree that is a hierarchical structure, of course, decomposing little by little, going into the operational. So it is not just a formal thing; it's substantive. So
Oh, sure.
Alessio, what about the connection with the goal setting at the long, medium, and short range?
Yeah. So I should tell that my background, right? So I was basically born raised in operations, so spent most of my working experience on the operational layer. I really feel what Alessandro said. So the concept of feeling lost when using a different map that is not the right map for that specific level. But I believe that you can also get lost when there is not the right level of coherence or integration across the different levels. So if the planning on the strategic level is misaligned from the planning on the tactical level or on the operational level, then you will see, you will have to deal with unpleasant situation in a way. So it's very important that all the layer of planning beside the tools that you're going to use are aligned to the value of the company or the tenants, the goal that are defined for the specific process or project or initiative. I have a good anecdote on this linked to my experience. Like, in my company, but I think this is part of the value of all the company. You really want to make sure that your customer is put at the center of every choice, and this is of course driving decision on the strategical level, tactical level, and on the operative level. On when you go on the operational level, you are talking about SNOP, so operative instruction on how to execute the process, and you need to make sure that even the operative instruction is aligned to that value. One use case can be, we are for instance, delivering a product. This can be a book. So in our operative instruction, we want to make sure that the customer that is going to receive this book is getting the book on time and is getting the book with a good level of quality. You can try to make it clear or as clear as possible on an instruction, but there will always be nuances or gray point when it comes to take a decision. So how we are making sure, for instance, that you are aligned across all the level. Whenever one of our associates have a concern or a doubt, so is the quality of this book good enough? Because I don't know, we have a scratch on that book. So should I send it to the customer or not? We are asking them to take this decision, and if they feel comfortable being the customer and receiving the book, they can move it forward. Otherwise, we sideline it. Cool. So here, whatever is not included in the operative structure is anyway covered by a value that is applied across all the level. So again, on the different level, I think it's important we keep some degree of coherence.
Alessandro, do you have a point on this? I read.
Yes, it's a wonderful. The point that Alessio is raising is really really interesting, and it raises the attention of all the entrepreneurs, mostly when we are dealing with big companies. Customer centricity, the connection to the customer. But can you imagine how a large company can keep it alive, this link with the real customer? If you are really a pizza maker and you have your guests in your restaurant, it's very easy to establish that. So what he likes, what he doesn't like, you can really see and perceive. Imagine when you have 100,000 people in between you and the one that is using your service. So the big challenge the companies have is to keep the coherence of all the strategies to the tactics to the operations, coherence with the goals, coherence with the customer needs. The better they are, the more rewarded they will be by the market. Imagine how challenging is it. What Alessio is describing, referring to values common to all the different layers, makes a big difference. Have you ever seen the importance all companies give to their mission, their credo, their big statement? Well, if you look at that from this point of view of coherence, you'll see that this is a tool as well. It is not only ethical, correct, but it's even a way of having the common language. So if you don't get anyway the detailed analysis of what you should be doing, look at the values, confirm that it is the right one, and then you have at least a compass to drive your journey.
Yeah, because
So very
sorry,
nice.
no,
Please, please.
in the sense that the compass not only drives planning, of course, but it drives the values do drive, let's say, the critical success factor, basically. So
Sure.
the goals can be easily communicated to the all the employees, and it gives a direction. This is of major importance because it also helps to prioritize. So I remember I worked with a fashion luxury company, and the CEO at a certain point said we have to focus on these 3 points, which were the Asian market, a certain category of product, so among all the references, a certain categories, and a certain class of stores. And saying these only 3 items, these only 3 concepts, he gave a clear picture of the priorities to be followed in all the structure. So this is the way in which you take the mission, the vision, and you drill down and dive deep, and step by step you define critical success factor, first goals, then critical success factor, and then indicators. So let's stay 1 minute more on the operational planning. So let's dive deep a little bit and go into the techniques. For example, in the operational planning, it is considered to be of little use to define tasks in a too general way, of course. So there are those who say that the elementary planning unit should not, for example, exceed 2 days, or someone who says you should be able to assign each task to a single person, to a single responsible. But are these just rules of thumb? I mean, which is the correct granularity in planning? The size of the basic item. Are there formal rules or methodologies, or are just based on experience? Alessandro and then Alessio.
Well, indeed, we have to make a simple step back and remember what plans are. They are tools. So the real rule is do whatever it makes this tool work. So there is no real binding concept. If you can do as you like, but remember that it is a tool to really make you clear what to do, when to do, how to do, and to track it easily. So if you are at the operational level, very likely the 2 dimensions that you have to assess is the granularity of time. So how your time scale is designed. So the limits, but even the unit of time, and the granularity of the tasks. In my personal view, the one that I've been developing over time, generally, whenever in my field, whenever you go to an operational level, the year is the max of the frame. Generally, it's even less than that, and the unit is almost the day. But and the tasks really, it's not important how much they last. What is important that they can be defined when they start and when they finish. Because and so it can be that it can be in reality, and it cannot be long for weeks, because if your unit is 1 day and you want to check the progress, if every action is taking weeks, you can never track if you are late or on time. So granularity of time linked to the frame you are really the timing frame you are really investigating, and the tasks. One criteria should be clear when they are ended, and should be of a reasonable time duration versus your units. This is the only thing that I use.
And you should track when it was expected to end and when it actually ended, and never overlap the two data. So always keep it separate.
Sure, and I'm famous in my company because I am the one that says whenever we write down a plan,
keep the original planning.
The original remains forever. You can never change the original plan, because if you keep changing, what the purpose, what is it for? So it's no more
Yeah,
a map, it's no more a model, it's only a mess. So you always seems that you are always right, but you need to know when you are not right. It's very, very helpful. So
but
you need when you are
this
wrong.
is a very very common malpractice that you find in companies. I mean, you do a continuously update the original plan. You don't keep the trace of the first draft, so you can't measure, for example, gaps. Or I mean, that was the right direction. Now I'm finding me here, and how
Yeah,
did I get here? So
yeah,
this is something that really I find it very often in several companies, and it really is definitely a malpractice. Alessio, this is of course, talking of Alessio's companies is of course never performed, because I mean Amazon is famous for the planning and the implementation of the plan. And Alessio, you do manage a lot of people who plans, and on top of this, they have also to implement what they have planned, what they have promised to you. So what are your suggestions? What is the best approach for those who developed tactical implementation plans?
Yeah. So in general, there is not like magic recipe. So you really need to understand the background. So I can give you like some tenets or approach I'm using. Back to Alessandro's point and also your point. If you keep changing your baseline, you are losing two level of information. First, what was wrong in the planning, and second, what was wrong on the execution, which are two different things. So it's very important you never get rid of the original plan. Uh, Beside this, I fully see what Alessandro mentioned. So the level of granularity should be, adjusted also to the length of the project or of the activity in general, and also to the deadline. I'm usually, leveraging three different approach. The first one, when defining the right level of granularity, is that this should be detailed enough for staying in control, but also not too detailed to either being always updating it or micromanaging it. Okay, what I mean by micromanaging, it's linked to the second dimension I'm using. There is, whenever you are planning and whenever you are managing a team that is working on the different activities, this has to be a positive development opportunity for them. So you want to make sure that the activities that you are assigned to them are a positive challenge. It's something where they can develop and they can go out of their comfort zone toward for developing their professional skill, right? So if you are increasing too much that level of granularity, you're actually taking an action that can be an opportunity for them, and you're splitting this in too many small activities, and then eventually these are easy for them, and you're micromanaging the sequence and you're micromanaging the way they're working, which is definitely not good for a people manager. The other way around, if this is too big, this can be like too much challenging for the person, and this can create frustration, and eventually also can cause that you're losing traction or control on the project. So this is of course based on in a way on the experience, but it's also based on the frequent interaction that you need to have with your team and how deep you are in knowing your team member, because you need to adapt depending also on them and on the situation. A third dimension I use, it's an important one, I guess, is what are the stakeholders of the activity. So there can be activities where you want to increase or decrease the granularity. Above all, this is when you want to increase it, because stakeholders are willing to get more insight, or they're willing to get more information with a higher frequency. So in this case, it makes sense, it can make sense even to split this activity a little bit more, and to increase the granularity so that you can fit also with the customer need. Having said that, it's a rule of good sense. And another rule of good sense I'm using on the operational planning is that you really want to leverage existing mechanisms. So you don't want to invent a new mechanism for controlling an ad hoc project or for controlling an ad hoc initiative. So each company has its mechanism that can have a daily frequency rather than a weekly or monthly or quarterly. So you may want to link your project or your activity to this existing mechanism, and this can create synergies and efficiency. Otherwise, you're creating a lot of extra work.
Oh, you touched several points which are extremely interesting. First one, uh, the delegation mechanism, basically. So
Yeah.
uh, people managing people means being able to determine which is the right size of the task that you are delegating. You correctly said if it is too big, the person may feel lost and may generate some mess. Basically, if you are splitting into two small tasks and they are micromanaging, you are losing the opportunity to empower that people, and basically
Definitely.
you're also overloading your tasks because you
Yeah,
are in your personal situation as a director. You can't micromanage all European fulfillment center. Would be crazy. All the people that are working with you, thousands of people, would be really crazy. So this is something very important. The right trade-off that it depends either on the style, the leadership style, and let's say the management style, and also on the expertise of the people. Because of course, if a person is extremely expert, he can stand having a large task to be delegated to. And also I think the attitudes of the people. So I want to go back to the original a concept that you both introduced previously, which is the psychological aspect. And so I'll get back to Alessandro with this question, because Alessio talked also about frequency of control. And if we talk about following up the projects, so how often do we monitor the progress? Can the frequency of control affect the people's psychology? For example, a too high frequency, for example, of course, excessively frequent monitoring can generate anxiety in the performers, and eventually create a counterproductive effect. What is your experience on this?
Um, you are touching a very, very sensitive point, and that even relates to my personal experience when I was involved in a global lean program, and I was undergoing this kind of periodic reviews of very detailed plans on a regular basis. And you are exactly right, saying that could the follow-up, the control, the review can generate anxiety. There are indeed two factors that generate this kind of anxiety in the people that are really attending and drive their bad behavior. And one of the ingredient on top of the frequency is the approach the leader of the program is having. If the review is perceived as a performance, personal review, uh, the reaction, whatever the culture, I've seen in Asia Pac, I've seen in North America, I've seen in France, is always the same. The defense can have a different kind of approach. You can imagine Thailand colleagues and Italian colleagues have a very different defensive
Behavior,
model,
of
right?
course.
Behavior, definitely. In one case was silence. The other one was a little bit
A little
more
bit.
vocal, a little bit more vocal, and I mean relying and finding out a very, very weird kind of causal effects. That this is really the point that leaders, the one that run programs, should take care. And I've seen people that were incredibly good at doing that. And when I was watching them, it was exactly the same kind of behavior you see in good coach in soccer team, for instance. When the team is playing, in most of the cases, the good coaches are not commenting or blaming the players while they play.
Are performing. Yeah,
I don't want to be in the locker room later on if he doesn't like it,
of course.
like them. But during the game, it's not a matter of commenting and criticizing. It is a matter of really getting the situation and working to fix it. Now, if team players perceive these constructive things, everybody knows reality is different from the plans, so deviations will definitely be there. I am
It's
surprised in
normal.
seeing I'm surprised in seeing senior leaders surprised by a deviation, saying, "Oh my God, we are late."
Yeah, it may happen.
What's new? Well, it happens. It's a matter of seeing, is it on the critical path? How serious the consequence is? How much can we really do differently to change and do? This is when you are, is the equivalent when you play a game and you are, and they score, and the opposite team is scoring. I mean, it happens, right? So you whenever you enter the field, you know that it can happen. Otherwise, it would be very boring as well. So what a surprise! Nothing. So as soon if the team is really designed and managed that way, anxiety is really driven off. And as a second point, even if your review is frequent, weekly, daily in some cases, monthly in other cases, the mood of the people will always be transparent, constructive, and timely. So the general negative pathological reaction I've seen in the wrong managed teams is that people update the schedule 5 minutes before the presentation,
Yeah,
because
I
it's a normal, natural thing. They don't want to see how late they are. In reality, they're really putting themselves in a very difficult situation because they have not even the time to find a reasonable way back or tactic to fix
justification.
it,
Yeah,
a
they can't
justification or
defend.
whatever. Yeah. So really, this is the game in that
I've
area.
heard a very beautiful sentence. It is people do what manager inspects, not what manager expects. So if you are inspecting frequently, I mean, all the effort will be on the review, not on the practical side of the project. I mean, it would be just to present the report and be able to justify the numbers, and then what has happened on the floor is something completely different. I think this is a problem that it often happens in large multinationals, also in those who have a very strong operational side, like, for example, logistics, just to say. And tell
Only
me,
one watch out. Only one watch out. Anyway, so the psychological effect is very critical, and this relates to the leadership of the leaders. Um, the frequency, anyway, cannot be tailored on the mood of the teams because the frequency of the control of the checks, let's say, are driven by how early you want to see deviations, and generally this is driven by the business risk behind it. If it
yeah,
is really, let me make it a simple example. If you really, even if you're late by 2 months, your financial impact is almost nothing. The customer will never believe. I mean, really, you can even track every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And if it is, and you realize that you are 3 weeks off, who cares? On the contrary, if every day is a disaster financially, you want to keep track. So unfortunately, frequency sometimes is driven by other factors that are more business related. Though leadership should know that in any case is not an examination, is a tool, and the tool are made to solve problems, not to generate issues.
now I want to hear Alessio's opinion, and on top of this, I would add for Alessio a question about dashboards. So about how much data do you check every time you monitor a project? Because I've seen dashboards of hundreds of indicators, and as well, I've seen dashboards just with the traditional, you know, cockpit with one only number. So um, tell us something more about how do you determine the right number of indicators to monitor, and again on what Alessandro was saying on the frequency, because I mean, I know, because I know you very well, and I know that you drive a lot of more simultaneous projects. So I really wonder how do you manage to do your job. So tell us
So
something on this.
before going there, just a couple of points on this topic that Alessandro was covering. I fully agree with what he said, right? So it's not the frequency of control that generate anxiety, is the way the leader or the manager approach to it. So when I enter into a review, I always make crystal clear with the facts to my team that if you are reviewing that project or that activity, or we are reviewing our operation, is because it's an opportunity for aligning on where we are, and then it's also an opportunity for identifying barriers that we need to remove together. So it's, to be honest, the way I see it is the moment where, as a manager, I'm putting myself I'm making myself available to the team to support them in removing their barrier, and it's not I mean finger
Inspecting,
pointing why
yeah.
something or inspecting why it's late. And again, if you're doing this in the wrong way, it's very likely that eventually people, as you mentioned before, will only focus on updating the Gantt or on updating the activity, but this is just a reporting action, while on the floor nothing is happening. So it's important to properly set the expectation to the team, and then to behave in a coherent way again when these things are happening.
Please,
Yeah, go
please,
ahead.
go on,
Sorry.
go on, go on.
So basically, this is the way I see it. In terms of frequency, I mentioned it earlier, like what are the kind of driver that I can be using. So in general, you don't want to inspect with a frequency that is higher to it's even more granular than the one a person can make an impact. On the other side, you don't want to monitor with a very wide horizon while several things are happening. Otherwise you are not in control.
We
When
are
it comes,
just
yep.
sorry, Alex. I wanted just to complete something, then I leave to you, because all these suggestions, all these aspects that we are raising, they all leverage on pardon me, not talking about operational excellence, but talking about human excellence. Because at the end, it seems that there are
It's all
no
about people.
model. Yeah, there are. It's all about people. There are no models. There are no techniques, because at the end you have to have the sensitivity to determine which are the right dimensions in your project, which what really influence the business, and how to handle people, how to manage people in order to help them in performing without being without risking the burnout. Sorry, I leave to you.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, in terms of technique, it's plenty of techniques around, right? It's you can buy a book, or now you can simply connect and find very good training, even on LinkedIn or whatever, with a lot of tools that can be leveraged. Then it's the right thing to do, and this comes a little bit with experience, and I think also comes being self-analyzing yourself, understanding whether you are approaching in the right way, and also collecting feedback from your team and from other stakeholders, whether you are leveraging the right tool and whether you are using them with the right approach. So again, it's a matter of being coherent to the value of the organization. So we get back at the initial topic that we were taking. In terms of KPI and dashboard, uh, there is not a general answer, right? So I can tell you a little bit like the maturity model or the path that I usually take. So whenever you introduce a new project or a new metric, um, I use the approach keep it simple and simple. Okay, and the dashboard usually is my board behind behind my shoulder and a marker, and I usually draw like a table there, and I'm having meeting with my team, debating how this KPI should be defined, and then once this KPI is defined, we manually pull the data. We manually understand where we are. Why? Because in a way we are creating the knowledge in that moment, because we are exploring something new, and you really need all that brain energy and all that innovation for understanding what is the right thing to monitor, how to monitor it, and whether we are looking at the right data or not. If you start already like with a full dashboard, pulling data without a right reasoning behind, mm, eventually you are only monitoring, but you're not going anywhere. Once this first step of checking the data in the board is done, you can start moving to the Excel. Why this? Because probably you don't need anymore like your senior manager to be there in pulling the data. It's enough to have like manager or other people in the organization that can pull already for you some prepared data, because you already defined that these data are good and this is what you really need, and you can start receiving some mail with some dashboard with attached this Excel, and this is a good thing for starting to look at it. But still you have like a daily inbox, or you can have a weekly one, so you are keeping a proactive eyes on that. Then when you have this dashboard, the dashboard is there, this is the last step, everything is automatized, all the team and all the people are aligned why this is important, and then you eventually the process is in a way in control, and you can, you know, even reactively look into this dashboard and see what data are saying, leveraging again existing mechanisms. So there is this weekly review or this monthly review, and when getting ready for that review, you can review this data on the dashboard.
Alessandro, again, we have 10 minutes, so we can perform another round. One last question, but the question is very important because we've been on this topic several times, which is priorities. So priority setting. Okay, we've said it comes from the vision, from the mission, from the critical success factors. It does influence how to handle the project in terms of frequency of planning, size of the task to be assigned to the several responsible people. So the general topic is that we have few resources, we have little time, we have to decide, and we often don't know how to move. So the problem is defining priority in conditions of let's say we say in the academy limited rationality or limited information, and this generate again anxiety. So how to choose priorities, suggestions, and everything that in turn descends from that in cascade.
That's a wonderful, wonderful question or point. Um, and I would start with the very same comment that I generally share with my colleagues, and is when people say, "Oh, we have little data." That's life, baby.
Yeah.
Because this is a real pathology. In a data-driven organization, people feel that data do not cost. Data cost, and it's a big cost to analyze them all. And there is a limitation in our brain to keep and consider a number of them. So you definitely are limited. We have to realize that we are limited. So even if the data are not limited, we are limited. So in any case, decisions must be taken on few meaningful things and your experience and your entrepreneurship. This is what makes a difference, really. Because look from a different perspective. This is what I was telling my son that was is very young, so and he tends to simplify things. He said if data, rational logic would be the real way of doing things, every company would be at the same level, everything would be run the same way, and probably all of them would be poor. There are losers and winners, and the losers and winners are those that can take decisions on a limited number of information.
And
Prioritization,
uncertainty and ambiguity. Yeah,
definitely. And this is and is again like for the unforeseeable reality is the same thing. This is part of our life. So ambiguity, things are never things do not come with instructions. Situations do not come with the right and the wrong. New sustainability rules. What is right? What is wrong? Really, this is happening, and it's up to us to really identify rules, way, and the winners will be those that are capable of understanding. This is normal. Now you're touching the real point: prioritization. Let me give you this perception from the perspective of a big company. Let's focus. Let's prioritize. Fewer, bigger. These are all buzzwords and statements that are coming every day because everybody's overwhelmed. Organizations are streamlining more and more and more. Inevitably, people either burn out or they start delivering poor results. Yeah, we are doing too much. Let's prioritize. And at this point, it comes back to the decision piece. Decision is painful because unfortunately, there is no right or wrong at the moment of decision. So planning in all the different aspects means people planning, financial planning, time planning. Everything contributes to really help you analyzing the risks. So what you really would like to bet on, and risks are based on two main factors. likelihood of occurrence of undesired situation and severity of consequences of those situations. It's up to you. Unfortunately, uh, there is no calculations you can make. You have to
Yeah,
get
okay.
the data and guess.
On this decomposition of risks, there is the famous black swan by Nassim Taleb that says, okay, pay attention to risks which has a very low probability, because otherwise, you get some destructions like the
Definitely.
11th of
Sure.
September, or the pandemic. And in the case of the pandemic, for example, we you should get used to the fact that there are, of course, black swans, but there are also black phoenix, like the pandemic, because
Sure.
the pandemic is a black swan that is reburning every time. And
Sure.
so you get it each year. So it is not, I mean, it's a disruptive event, and is
Absolutely.
unpredictable, but it becomes something which is repeated. So it's not like, again, a swan, it's like a phoenix. And to Alessio, the last point to you: priorities. And okay, Amazon is famous because it's the most customer centric company in the world, and so priorities for you are driven by your customers. So while Alessandro's company, maybe the customer is like more like the final customer is an abstract entity. In your case, is a very, very physical entity. And how do you manage to transmit the priorities, capture the priorities of the final customer, and be guided by those in the choices of the entire business, at least in your division?
Yeah. So I usually use the sentence first things first. And then I clarify to my team what first things have to be the first. So I think you made the point before when you were talking about your this colleague in another logistic company. So depending on the period of the year or depending on the project, I usually clarify to my team what are the tenets or the value that we want to follow for that specific project or initiative, and I put them in order. So I give them like a priority, like number one is this, number two is this, number three is this. And this simplify a lot the execution. Why this? Because everyone is aligned, everyone knows where we have to go. And then when you have like two or three compelling choice and you have to compare between them where I should go, you have a list of priority. So if I think about operations, the way we are running, one of the first rule that we have in general is to make sure that we are creating the right culture of safety. So when this is your first statement, even before starting to think about the customer, you want to make sure that all the employee are working in a safe
Are safe.
environment. So
Yeah.
uh, this is the step zero. So and it's very important you have this, because whenever then you have to take a decision on the process on how we want to do this, you need to make sure that first this choice or this change that they are going to make, it's impactive in a positive way the safety of the employee. And then of course you start to look at the how to serve the customer and what is the best way for doing that. What is important is that when you give this priority, this must be in a way high level. This should be the values, because you don't know what's going to happen when you're executing your plan. So if this goal is too precise in a way, probably what's happened is not really related to that. So like I think this one is a good use case. Like create a culture of safety. It's something general, but it's something that is everywhere, and is giving the right direction and the right priority to the team when it comes to make decision.
So, sorry, because I when I introduced you, I said, okay, customer centric, because this is the most famous claim by Amazon.
But
But
that's customer centric,
I
right?
mean,
Employee are internal customers, so
yeah. Well,
it's
we do
better.
know that safety is at the first point, either in Amazon and in Johnson and Johnson, of course, and in most of the multinational companies. I hope all the multinational all the companies, safety is first, and so then comes the business. So this is clear. I don't want to be misunderstood on this. So I'm not thanking you yet because we still have 1 hour. So now we are coming to the end of the public session. So again, in some 30 seconds, we're going to shut down this broadcasting, close the video on YouTube, and switch to the Microsoft Teams meeting. And the youth students that have been invited, they should have the link. And so let's formally thank you for this first session. So thanks, Alessandro. Thanks, Alessio, formally, because again, we are seeing in a while on the other platform. Really, thank you for your contributions. I think that we had a great dialogue, a great discussion on the planning and management topics. And okay, that's it. We'll switch in 1 minute to the Microsoft team meeting. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot. Bye.